you can watch these TV shows and you can see these people step into these rooms and they persuade people. But what do you think it is that are those elements that you need to be doing to kind of persuade people to go on that journey where they put their hand in their pocket and they give you the money to play?
Yeah, I think the more money you ask for, the more difficult it comes. And when I say difficult, the more you can cut through the bullshit and they're looking at actually, you know, you can't just speak your way through it.
How comes you wanted to buy it back in the first place? I know you mentioned it was your baby, but you could have gone on to other things and done other things. So why the company you built?
The first one, it's hard to build a company.
Is it? Everyone, all these videos say how easy it is, and you can do this and do that.
The reality is that we know that 9 out of 10 companies fail within the first year. So out of the one that succeeds, 9 out of 10 of these companies fail within the first 5 years. So if you set up a company from scratch, you are setting up to fail.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not more than likely, it's almost certain that you will fail if you set up a new company over the period of 5 years.
You should stick with it until the very, very end, because quitters never quit, losers never quit, and all these things.
It's terrible. That's what kills you.
With so much content out there, how do you filter through all the noise and cut straight to the value? What has become very apparent is that the best way to learn is to surround yourself with those you aspire to be. But you can't just watch what they do. At some point, you have to turn it into an action. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. On this podcast, you will go on a journey as we speak to people who are making a difference in their industries, and people who, if we listen to closely and take action, can turn you into who you want to be. My name is Mark Sclair, and this is Your Turning Point. Mike.
Mark.
That's fine.
Okay.
May 2020, that's the last time I had you on the show.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get you back because recently there's been a big announcement in the company, and rather than me kind of ruining the message, I'd love you to give an update to everybody, really, what's gone on.
Okay, cool, thanks. So if everyone remembers, I mean, but just in case.
Yeah, give a recap.
Yeah, let's start right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So we set up a company in Thailand in 2015, a PropTech company. And we were building, and we went through some hard times of failure, especially during COVID and just difficult times, first time entrepreneur. But in the back end of 2022, we kind of got the dream scenario where we actually found an exit for the company. And we sold to a public company in Japan called LIFULL. And you know, this was a dream of all entrepreneurs, to build and sell and look for a payday. And as soon as we sold, we kind of felt cellular remorse, where, you know, it's kind of, it's not like a child, but it's a part of you. You know, you build something, it's yours, it's your image, and it meant a lot to us. And it's part of a journey that us and the other founders were having. So what happened is that we had cellular remorse, and the company was growing. And we thought we still enjoy what we're doing, really enjoyed it, and we didn't want the kind of this journey to end. And the time was coming close as the contract we had with the company that acquired us was ending. So we tried to buy back the company.
Buy it back.
Buy it back. I think the challenge here is that they wouldn't sell us the company as a segment. So then we came up with the audacious kind of, you know, play to, instead of trying to buy back our company, we'll try and buy the company that bought us, which is slightly mad if you think about this. And that's what we just completed. So we acquired the company that acquired us. And through that now, we've got a large global footprint, and we're a much larger player. So it's a pretty crazy story in this own capacity.
Crazy story. And there's so many things I want to kind of get into with that. But the first part is, how comes you wanted to buy it back in the first place? I know you mentioned it was your baby, but you could have gone on to other things and done other things. So why the company you built?
Yeah, good question. I think it's the first one. It's hard to build a company. So if you...
Is it? Everyone, all these videos say how easy it is, and you can do this and do that. That's why I wanted you on the show, because you speak the truth.
Yeah, well, I think the reality is that we know that 9 out of 10 companies fail within the first year. I think that 9 out of the 10 so out of the one that succeeds, 9 out of 10 of these companies fail within the first 5 years. So if you set up a company from scratch, you are setting up to fail.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not more than likely, it's almost certain that you will fail if you set up a new company over the period of 5 years. So this is a really difficult thing. The second thing is setting up something from zero to one is a lot of energy. You know, I'm kind of come out to my 40th birthday in a few months, and I'm not as naive as I was when I was 30. And there's a few multitude of things, and knowledge and everything else, timing and position, but starting again is difficult. And hats off to any entrepreneur that does this multiple times from zero. But for us, we just thought that we had the perfect opportunity. We've got a really good company. It's growing. We really understand this. Job not done. Like job being, we could be a lot bigger, and and it's not really about the money at this stage. It's more about achievement.
Yeah.
So that was the core fundamentals, and we really enjoyed it. It gave us, the founders, something to unite around and to be part of this together. So that community element, yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned before it's the dream of everybody to build a business and exit.
Yeah? So a dream of an entrepreneur. That's kind of like
an entrepreneur.
What's been sold to you. Yeah. In terms of, you see these YouTube videos, this is kind of,
exactly.
You build a company, you sell it, you make loads of money, and you live happy ever after. Yeah.
But I never saw you as the person that built a company to exit. I never saw you as that. Like, I saw you as something different. And if we just filled people in here, it's not just you owning the business. You also got a couple of partners.
Yeah.
And you've gone through two journeys. One is that you persuaded them to start the company in the first place. Actually, three. One, you persuaded them to start the company. Then you persuaded them to sell it. And then you persuaded them to buy it back. So how did you do that? How did you do it?
You got to have either crazy or stupid partners, or both, right?
Yeah.
Crazy, stupid partners.
Yeah.
That helps. I think getting anyone to be bought into a vision is a really, it's not necessarily a hard thing. It consumes huge amount of energy. You have to be, convinced, and not to other people, to yourself, relentless, that this is where we're going to go, and you believe in your vision. Otherwise, no one else is going to believe in it. You expel huge amounts of energy going through this process. So getting anyone to be convinced, whether it's business partners or staff or even, your customer base, is a really challenging and energy consuming role. So I had to make people buy in, especially when you've got co-founders.
Yeah.
They have to really believe in where you're going, because this is something which is going to go wrong. As we said, you're going down the route of failure. So you've got to believe in some magical shit, whether it's fate or God or something, which is like, this is going to work out against all odds. Because otherwise, if you play the odds game, you know the outcome. This is not going to work. So getting people to buy into a vision is key.
Yeah, and I think as well, like what I talk about, and that's why it transfers so over, because it's communication. How you're able to persuade somebody. And the key thing is, like, what's in it for them? You need to understand what's important to that person, because what might persuade you is different to what might persuade them. So once you understand that, then you can start pulling on those strings and start influencing them in a way, like envisioning, we said we were going to do this and we've done that. Like, what does that now mean to you? And it gets them rolled up a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I know that with you, from experience of knowing you for many, many years, like, you have this way to persuade people, because you've got this such belief, and people want to go on that journey with you, even though they might think you're crazy or nuts, but they just know that even if they're thinking this isn't going to work, they're convinced and persuaded by you. And that must feel good, and also quite daunting at times. What a lot of responsibilities take on your shoulders.
It is. And a kind of saying I've always said is that, listen, we live once, and can we be kings amongst men? Why can't we? Why can't anyone? If you go for it, what's stopping us versus other people who we've seen achieve it? Are they something special? The answer for me is no. If we're going to go together and we get a solid group of people that believe, we're going to get there. And that's the fun, really. It's the challenge. It's like, the journey is so much more enjoyable than the end result. But it's having that belief that we can get there, and that we're climbing a mountain. If we get there, at the top of the mountain is going to be this beautiful gold pot, whether that's money or life or whatever you're going to have at the top. That's really, really exciting. And it's very attractive to buy into. So if you can find the right people, because you can't say this to everyone, but if you can really get the right people around and get them to buy in and really tap into something that's more than money, because if you say we're going to be rich, number one, you're lying. And if you say we're going to make money, number two, it's going to be a long time, even if you do that. So you'll be lying either way. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really hard. And if we get there, we're going to enjoy it at the end of the journey. So,
yeah, I think most people say, like, I want to make money. And then they get along that journey and they realize actually like the money has nothing to do with it. It's the impact you can have and how you've been able to grow from zero to now have over 500 people in the business.
Well, yeah, no, a lot more than 500.
A lot more, okay.
Yeah. But, I think we've got thousands, in the business now. So it's pretty crazy. But I think it's not the money. It's like, I think it's not even, I was working for someone or a company in the bank. I was working for a big bank, Credit Suisse. They're no longer around. And it's probably why, because they weren't very good at what they were doing. But I didn't like who I was working for. No. I didn't aspire to be them. And I wanted that freedom because they were restricting us. They restrict everyone because someone's got to lead. But the same way that I could be seen to restrict my team. So that freedom that you can do anything is intoxicating.
All right, so let's get into that then, because you want this freedom, okay? Yeah. And I said this to Paul, one of your partners, one of my good friends, friends, and he goes, I want to run my own business. And I said, yeah, but there's going to be 3 of you. So if 2 of you decide that they don't want to do it, then you can't do it either. But in 2020, when we did this interview, we did an online podcast. We were just going through COVID at that time and you had to make some big changes and you got through that. And in 2020, you got acquired. Yeah.
2022, we got acquired.
2022. So 2022. Now, this freedom all of a sudden was taken away from you because now you've been acquired by a company with huge corporate structure. And that's quite good because it gives you some discipline, but it also doesn't give you the freedom. So how were you able to deal with that? Apart from deciding you wanted to buy the company back?
Yeah, well, I think when someone comes along and offers you a huge amount of money, then it's you're all very excited. But one question I had for the other co-founders: what we're going to spend the money on? We had everything we kind of needed. We're not rich capital wise, but rich in life, and we had everything we needed. So I didn't think it would change too much. So once you get past the money side, which ends in about 30 seconds, it's not very exciting. You build up for this big, grand finale and it's not so exciting. Then you're part of this other company. And we had a contract for a few years and they're very structured. And, large corporations restrict entrepreneurism. They restrict innovation.
Exactly.
Because they're there to, especially public companies, they're very much about risk, control, governance, and they have to. Yeah. So it was very, very different. I had a board for the first time, which, there's certain things I couldn't do. So I was a CEO by title only, not by anything else, because realistically, there were certain things that I was restricted from by a group. But there was lots of positives as well. Yeah. But I think in terms of the reason why the opportunity came around to actually acquire the company back is that they actually wasn't structured in a way that would ever achieve anything. Big corporates buying startups and changing the culture.
This is it.
And what made the company great and changing it to something else is a bad idea.
So a lot of the time you see with these acquisitions and mergers, they get acquired and then a lot of people leave the business because it's just not the way it used to be. Yeah. Did that happen in the business or?
Well, I think what was clear is that as soon as our contracts were up, we would leave. We wouldn't stay around 1 second longer. And it's because this isn't our company. We instilled the culture. The culture was ours. Yeah. We're now talking about corporate culture values, which aren't ours and aren't the person running it, that are just, some of the stuff was bemusing at the best. And I think that we were starting not to recognize the company. And it wasn't just purely because of them, because we were trying to maximize the sale price of the company. So we had that very difficult decision that if we start firing people, our profit margins go up and we finally make more money and we're leaving. So the whole journey was about us being together as a group, not just the founders, but the staff and the community. And it eventually ended up being, hey, we've paid everyone, all the staffers, all the shareholders been paid. Let's pay ourselves and let's start firing our friends because they'll have values on the back. And it's a really, really difficult kind of time to go through as an entrepreneur, because I used to think that you could build businesses by just being, really nice to everyone. But business is not that way, unfortunately. No. And you have to make difficult decisions, if you really want to succeed. And it's just a reality. If anyone says that you can get your way through this and just being nice to everyone all the time, and you try and be as nice as you can without firing people, not based on bad performance, just to increase margins of the company. That's the reality that businesses all face today. And especially you see this with AI coming through. Everyone's looking at the person next to them thinking, let's just get rid of them because, AI can do the job. So it was a difficult time, and we wasn't enjoying it. So the process of post-selling, we wasn't enjoying this, pushing towards high margins and getting. We wanted to build, wanted to be creative, and wanted to have that community, and we kind of lost a lot of that through the integration for a larger corporation.
Yeah, I think it's really important because you feel responsible for the people in the business as well. And you said you were going to leave once your contract was up, but I'm sure that you still felt that it's probably one of the big reasons why you've wanted to buy the company back as well, because those people are part of your family, and they've been on the journey with you and they've stuck with you through the hard times. So you wanted to kind of pay it back to them as well.
100%.
Yeah.
When you set up a startup, the people that are there are like your brothers or sisters. They're there all day, every day. You know these people better than you know anyone in your life. You know, they're in the trenches with you through good, through bad, through highs, through lows, through boredom, through excitement. And you have an obligation to them. They've joined you in your journey.
Yeah.
So their careers have to improve. And if they do, they also rely on, they probably want financial success, and they probably, if the community ends and you leave, they probably leave. So you end up having a lot of people you impact just besides yourselves. And that's some of the weights that wear on you as a founder. Yeah.
So when you look to acquire back the company, it wasn't as simple as, hey, we'll sell it back to you. It was a tough gig doing that. Yeah. So what happened there? What was that journey like?
Yeah, it was a hard one. I remember it was about a year ago today where I came up with the idea, and I was on top of a ski slope, and just with my family, and thinking, because I was very peaceful up there, and thinking, cool, I'm not really done with this, and I need to make a big move, and this is audacious to acquire the company that bought us, and I don't know how to get this done. And I then spent the next 8 months doing this, and this was full time. I was the CEO of the company during that period. And I had to effectively step down as a CEO and pass this on to a co-founder and focus 100% of my time working to get this deal done. Because obviously the acquiring company was a large public company, lots of bureaucracy involved, lawyers, financial assistants, tax advisors, structural people, ex-employees. It was just a huge amount of work going in. I think in the end we bought over 30 or 35 different companies was how much we acquired. Yeah. So it was very, very complex across the globe, from LATAM into Europe, into Southeast Asia. So it was a very, very complex deal. But, 8 months of my life I lost, but the outcome is that we can now structure deals which are large, and I've got the experience. So a lot of work. It wasn't as simple as, hey, can I buy it? What's the price? And here you go. So, and the other question is, how do you buy a company without the money? It's an interesting question. So
please tell me more.
I guess, when you buy things, everyone's assuming you would have to have huge amounts of capital to acquire things, but it's the devil's in the detail. You can buy a company for, I think LIFULL spent 350 million euros on the companies that we own now. And we definitely didn't have 350 million euros. So how do you buy a company, with almost extremely limited cash, and that's the question. The devil's in the detail on how you structure this. And this is stuff that you don't learn at school. No. And I definitely didn't learn along my journey, but I had advisors around that would help me, guide me through this process. And it's interesting for all entrepreneurs out there that are looking at deals, and I know this conversation isn't specifically about that if there is a will, there is usually there's some form of way. Yeah. And I think you have to just be creative in how you're structuring things. Yeah.
So I'm just going to pivot a little bit. Sure. And you just said that you bring in the experts and the expertise. Okay. So you have hired those people because they have experience and evidence of success of doing what you need them to do. Am I right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So I've just made you walk into a trap there. Okay.
Right.
Because something which I've observed with you, which is a wonderful thing, you have a lot of trust in your friends and you want to take people along on the journey with you, okay? But you've had people come into the business purely because you trust them. But would you agree, and I'm going to put words in your mouth here, that isn't always what success would bring you to actually have somebody to run a business for you?
It's a really good question. And so, because someone asked me this recently, so the Japanese who are a shareholder of my company, they made an observation. They said, Mike values trust more than potentially experience or competency.
Very interesting.
That's what they said.
Yeah.
And I said, there's no wrong. There's different people valuing different things. You know, some people value competency versus trust, or execution versus competency, and you can mix it. For me, trust is a super important thing. Like, it probably ranks the highest. I need to trust you. So I think when you go onto the angle of where you're going with, and you're talking about friends, the problem I had was I thought that I can trust all my friends. But the reality is that you can't trust all your friends. Only some of your friends are trustworthy. A very few amount of people. They're nice people, and we all like to think that friends are, you can rely on them and count them. The honest answer is it's slightly naive. So, but trust for me is the most important thing. And I put people in positions that I trust, that I don't have to worry or look, or I know have the best interest of myself, there. So right now I have, there is a group CEO who runs the company that I trust. And I have 2 co-founders who also run part of the company that I trust, which allows me to sleep at night.
But they've got experience in the business, and I think from observing from the outside, you've trusted somebody to come in, and they've got the best intention, the best will in the world, but they've not had the experience of delivering a company with 50, 100, 200, 300 people, and it's very, very different to you trusting that person that they won't run away with your money.
Listen, 100%. Yeah. So the ultimate is trust, competency, and experience all together, right? I think that I can't just go on trust. But I'm saying, if you look at the hierarchy of where you're weighing things up,
you'd start with trust first.
Trust is very high. And let's just say they have to exclusively have 3 attributes. They can't just be, I trust. I can't, as much as I love my mum, I can't have my mum run my company, and I trust her relentlessly, So I think that, trust is important as competency, and as long as you value this, because, we're in this together, and also you want to enjoy the experience. Even if someone is competent and they can be trusted, but you don't fully trust them, it's not going to make your experience enjoyable. So part of running these companies and taking all this risk and all this pressure is you have to enjoy what you're doing. So you've got to look around and be, hey, I like everyone, and I trust everyone. I feel safe running this process as opposed to anything else. And you hear about a lot of problems with people. A lot of early startups break up because the founders don't get along, and this is one of the most common things that happens.
Yeah, we won't go into it, but the beginning when you started the company, thinking that somebody was an expert on many things, and it didn't turn out to be that way.
Yeah,
but that was a big eye opener for that person as well. And we've said this before, even on the original podcast, right? Paul has come such a long way. And I think the first thing is like recognizing that he wasn't an expert in all these things, but he's gone on a journey to learn and develop and have people around him as well. And I just wanted to say before, because you said that you could trust somebody to put in a position and they're going to do it. But a lot of the time, and this is what I tell people, like they need to be in an environment where they feel empowered and they feel supported. So there's some people should just be able to get on with it. And I do get that, but if you feel that person's got the potential, there's still the responsibility of you being quite hands-on with them. And I think observing from the outside, it was more, come in, do the business, you run it, do it as you need, like I trust you. Yeah. When really they needed that
100%
channeling.
And listen, when you talk about, obviously mentioning, like Paul, it's not just Paul's come a long way, we all have. I mean, I'm the same, right? Me and Paul and Brennan and everyone else and and past partners, we knew nothing when we started. No. We still...
We thought you did, though.
Listen, that's the biggest problem, that we all think we know.
Yeah.
But even now, we still don't know. No. We're still kind of making up as we go along.
But you're on the next chapter, that's why.
We know we know more.
Yeah.
Do we know everything? 100% no. And I think, when you go through the business, I was like a hardcore entrepreneur, like a lot of people inspired me. And I knew that empowerment and delegation and making people feel like they can make their own choices was important. And I did this a lot without making sure that they actually could do this by themselves. So delegating and empowerment is great if you empower the right people. Yeah. Empowering the wrong people to make lots of decisions and choices is a bad idea. Yeah. And I've kind of made every mistake in the book, and along with every other entrepreneur out there that probably hasn't gone to a business school or had entrepreneurial communities to learn the lessons, or shortcut some of the mistakes. So there's probably loads of people who have business that made every mistake in the book like me.
Yeah.
And we've all got this far. So we know we've made all the mistakes, we have all the lessons. And we're still making mistakes, but we're not going to make the last ones. And especially with empowerment.
That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Right.
And I think, I've heard this so many times from my own experience as well. Like I took on a leadership role, and now I'm sat in a meeting with all of the senior leaders in the business. And before that, I'm so worried that I'm going to get caught out and I'm going to get found out. I don't know what I'm doing. They've got no idea what they're doing either. Nobody, not that they're winging it, but they're just, right, the next step. Can I get past these next 10 minutes, these next 20 minutes,
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's like, I can totally relate to that because I do a lot of public speaking and I've got a presentation actually next week. I've got to do a conference and people are like, you are very confident. And I say, I am nervous until the moment I have to go up. And then I'm like, it's game time. Yeah. And I think everyone is nervous, As we always said, we were talking about sports. Mike Tyson was scared going into the ring, even though he was a beast. So I think like we can all relate to faking it before we make it. And do we continuously fake it? Of course we do. I've been hearing this quote go along that if you get advice from someone, just remember they'll be dead soon. And so don't take advice, literally in terms of, you've got these mentors or industry experts that will give you advice like they know. Yeah. And the reality is that they probably have some insights from experience and lessons they've learned, but no one knows.
Well, that's it. Have they done it? And that's the thing. Like we were talking about this before. You're trying to justify yourself to people that have never been through it, that have no experience of it. And I'd love to have somebody question what I'm trying to do if they've been there and done it, because I can learn something. But so much time is wasted.
So much time.
Yeah.
So much time. Yeah.
We'll move on because let's stop wasting time there. Okay. Yeah. But just to go back to your Mike Tyson point, like I really love the idea of like imposter syndrome and how we've got two choices. We can either let it overtake us or we can say, I don't know my stuff, but I'm going to make sure I'm prepared. So when you get onto the stage, like they're not asking you to talk about something you've not got experience on. You're talking about stuff that you've been through and you can have a chat about.
100%. But I mean, when we acquired this company, imposter syndrome to the highest level, companies all over the world in different verticals that I don't even know the capital cities of half these countries that we're in, or didn't know. I do now.
No, we won't do a geography test. Okay.
But yeah, like super hard in different languages. Half of my company is Spanish, or half the group is Spanish speaking, more than half, and I don't speak Spanish. And funny enough, I don't speak Thai. Imposter syndrome kicking in to the highest degree. But what I realized is after having, mentorship and solid people around me that have been through this, is that everyone has it. There is no one that doesn't have it. And if you don't have that, you are probably bad for the role. If you're just like, yeah, this is easy. I'm not an imposter. I was meant to be this, I think it's very unlikely. The odd occasion might work. But
you become complacent.
Correct.
And that's where you fall off because you think you know your stuff. You think you believe your own hype. And actually, it's the effort and the work that you put in beforehand is allowed you to get to that point where, you're nervous before, but you get up, they go, let's go, and you're ready to go.
Agreed. And what drives me is I'm scared of losing.
Yeah.
I am scared of losing, and that pushes me on. I don't want to lose. Whatever losing really is, whether it's embarrassment, whether it's me eating out of, having no, security I do not want to lose. Yeah. So I'm so scared to lose that's pushing me on. So. And I need that imposter syndrome to keep me scared. So it's needed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a question I want to ask as well, because it's something that I kind of heard last week, and I think it's really important to discuss. You can either be right or you can be successful. So I just want to ask, like, what is something that you were adamant about, that you fully believed maybe a few years ago, which you had to accept actually wasn't right, and you had to make a change?
There's loads. I mean, we set up a company where I was 100% certain that real estate agents would be replaced, that agents would not exist the same way the travel industry went, where OTAs, whether it's booking.com or Agoda or Expedia, this will happen to real estate. And I was 100% certain that it would happen within 10 years. 100%. There was nothing doubting me. If you said otherwise, you was an idiot. And the reality is boy, how wrong I am, And obviously, I've had to change my approach. Now our strongest asset is our community of agents. So, that's an example. Another one is, I have a venture group that I set up loads of businesses, all different asset classes, boats, insurance, medical, cars, real estate, and crypto. It went on and on. And when I'm looking at the portfolio of what I've got, what's actually left, half of them, more than half didn't work.
Yeah.
We have to roll back on our positions. So, and I was dead certain that I was going to be a venture builder and groups. So I think acknowledging you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
Even if you're certain you're right, as soon as you know that the game has changed and something is different to your assumptions you made, you should change your mind.
Yeah.
People say to me, but you change your mind all the time. That's a bad thing. 1 minute you're going here. If I've got new information, what makes us really good is that we will change our mind. And we'll be like, let's just throw that away. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. But we spent a year building it. Okay, fine. It was a bad idea. So I've been wrong many of times. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. If we go back to building something for a year, I guess that there's that discussion that you could have had beforehand if somebody would have gone through the questions with you in the right way. Like, could we do more with what we've got right now than actually going and doing this and going gung-ho with this? And that probably might have stopped you.
100%.
Yeah.
Part is that founder where it's hard to be challenged.
Yeah.
Not because people aren't intelligent, because you are arrogant and you're not willing to listen. And the reality is I had people tell me this was probably not the smartest moves I've made. Actually, my business partners, especially one of them, was very clear. And in my head, I was like, no, you're wrong. Turns out I was wrong. And listen, it's fine. It's okay to be wrong. I think the game is to be wrong less than you are right. And as long as you can run them numbers, eventually you make more good decisions, you do bad decisions, and things work out in the right way.
Yeah, I think rip that Band-Aid off and just get on with the next one. And don't leave any emotions there. Like, we tried it, we thought it would work. But then there's that idea of like, but you shouldn't quit at anything. You should stick with it until the very, very end, because quitters never quit, losers never quit, and all these things.
It's terrible. That's what kills you.
Exactly.
Being emotionally attached to something like that, where actually you're no good at it. Like, for example, I was never good at football, and it was like, you should never give up. No, I should have given up. I was really bad. I have 2 left feet, and I'm running like a duck. So it's not going to work for me.
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, there you go. And I've had this with sports. I've had this with things I've done, and in business. We've chosen some things that would work elsewhere that is not working, or not working with us, or not working because we're not good at doing it. And the sooner you come to the conclusion that it's done, the faster you can actually go and do something you'll be great at. And I think that's important. So emotionally being attached to something, to a bad idea, is disastrous. Yeah.
Not looking to disturb this interview, so I do apologize, but it's very, very important. Not only you get to listen to this, but everybody does. And the way that we do that is by giving it a like, a share, and a follow. Let's spread this across the community. I'm trying to offer as much value as first. Again, I apologize. Let's jump back into this. Yeah. Let me go back a second, because you said about the thing that you admitted that you got wrong, which is there'd be no more need for real estate agents. Why do you think there is still a need now, 10 years on, from when you started the business?
Yeah, it's still difficult for me to fully fathom, but
because the technology is there.
Technology is there. At least coming there. It's the closest I've ever been to. But I think the one thing I underestimate is that people feel comfort in people.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I found it very hard to miss. And I guess it's why I have friends and why I love my family, and because you feel comfort. Otherwise, you just be by yourself all day. And I think when people make a big decision in their life, whether it's getting married or doing something very different, they have people they comfort. And I think when you're making the biggest purchasing decision of your life, you want to have someone there while you're going through this.
Reassurance.
Yep. Reassurance and competency and expertise. I think part of the challenge is that you want the competency, and experience. And, this is hard to get. We can't make the assumption that you have 100 workers in any industry and 100 are good. You're probably going to be, Pareto would say, 20 are good out of the 100. So, which is where I would struggle with. But I still think, obviously, now that, it would be sad if relationships was out the window and we just did everything by ourselves. So I think that the reality is we're probably always going to need people to be involved in that process in some capacity. It will change, but yeah.
Well, look, I'm a sales coach, so unless people elevate up with their skills and their competencies and their capabilities, they will get left behind.
Oh, 100%. And this is where I struggle, because I think there's been an element of salespeople that can't add up.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to add up. We just got the gift of the gab.
Yeah.
This is not enough. Maybe 30 years ago this would work. You now need to be extremely competent using tools and technologies to improve your sales process and sales skills. Competition is getting stronger, not because there'll be less salespeople, but better ones because of all the innovation that's happening. So I think that's where I was struggling and thinking, look, unless they're going to be extremely competent, then why would we need this? I think we're going to see this change happening with salespeople, where the quality of salespeople start increasing and the sheer numbers start decreasing as people become more efficient in, instead of selling, for example, in real estate, average on 1 property a month, people are selling 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're a great example of it. I wouldn't say that you're a tech geek, but you have that side to you. Okay, so when you got your tech geek hat on, you're thinking, well, let's remove all humans out of this process. Let's bring in an automated system, and people are definitely going to buy from it.
Well, if you think on this aspect, I mean, like, okay, in real estate, most of the agents don't even own properties themselves, so they don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge. So it's like, well, the question is what are they doing? Right?
Yeah,
and that's
what justifies their fee.
That's why,
and that's what annoys people.
Yeah, and that's where I really struggle. And hopefully the company we're building doesn't have this, right? Where we're bringing, training, competency. But I've been in many sales environments. You go and buy a TV from a TV shop. They don't know anything about TVs. They're just like, this is the price. If you say, oh, what's got the best viewing angles, they'll look at you and they're salespeople. So,
but there are those few which do, and it really stands out.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And that's it. So I'm not labeling all salespeople with the same brush. No. I'm saying, like anything, you should try and be the best at your craft. And if you are, you will exceed beyond any scope. Yeah. But it's the people who decide not to succeed and just can rely on making quite good money from that whole sales flow and not understand their craft or industry. It can get frustrating for
big time, yeah. But that comes with hiring people, getting people in, and it's a revolving door, and it's cheap to, especially in Dubai, it's cheap to bring people in on those salaries, commission only. But I always say that there's a difference between a salesperson and a sales professional. And the professional is a person that applies himself every day. Learn about the product, learn about the market, sharpen their sales skills. They want to be better than the day they were before.
I'm with you. And it's the same as having a entrepreneur and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah. One is pretending, one is doing, or a footballer and a professional footballer.
Yeah, true.
You don't have to be good to be a professional footballer. You're going to play in a professional manner. I think that as long as you can bring professionalism to any industry, and I think sales lacks professionalism more than other industries, because the concept of using only your mouth sometimes, and that's going somewhere else. And I'm not insulting anyone, but I think
you are, but it's okay.
Am I?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
But we can maybe scratch that. But I think
no, it's okay, because how you see it is how salespeople see themselves. Unfortunately, they don't feel a value. They're quite dismissive. They're quite submissive to their client because they want to put the client on a pedestal. But for me, if you've worked on yourself and you've learned about the product, learned about the market, you deserve to be in a room with that person, because that person doesn't always know what they need as well.
I agree. Yeah. I've been around some very few, but some amazing salespeople, and cool. You don't want to leave the room with them. You want to be like them.
Look, everyone's in sales, and now I want to get on to you've been having to travel around to actually sell something, which is the idea of acquiring some money for the business, to grow the business, yeah? Well, so you've had to approach some companies to get some funding.
Well, we've always had to raise money.
There we go, exactly. So I think you can watch these TV shows and you can see these people step into these rooms and they persuade people. But what do you think it is that are those elements that you need to be doing to kind of persuade people to go on that journey where they put their hand in their pocket and they give you the money to play?
Yeah, I think the more money you ask for, the more difficult it comes. And when I say difficult, the more you can cut through the bullshit and they're looking at actually, you can't just speak your way through it. So partly is the belief in you. And do you believe, you have to really believe what you're saying. I've said this before to other people. You have to really, really, really believe what you're saying, because someone will see through you if you don't. The second one is you have to be deemed very competent. And competency is basically you're backing up with what you're saying with evidence and artifacts to show that you can actually do, or you are doing what you're saying, and structure. So there's a lot that goes into this, but yeah, I'm always selling. I'm always selling. I sold the company. That's a really hard thing. Selling products illiquid, there's only one buyer in the market, and it's a very hard sell. Is really hard to do.
Yeah.
And raising capital when every startup in the whole planet is looking for capital is also really, really hard. There's not like an open market for this. There's not like a clean appetite for this. So as a founder and an entrepreneur, and usually a leader of the company, I'm always selling. I'm selling to staff. I'm selling to funds. I'm selling to my co-founders. Yeah. I'm selling to my stakeholders. I'm selling to the market. So, and I'm selling to myself. That's the hardest thing. You have like selling to myself. I'm thinking, do I really buy this? Yeah, that's the hardest thing. I've got to, make sure that I fully am bought in by selling this is what will happen if we do this, and this is what we're trying to solve, and this is what the benefits will be. So yeah, entrepreneurs are always selling, and they're very, very good at it in terms of they're selling, then they're convinced. So I think it's one of the foundation skill sets entrepreneurs must have, is that they have to be exceptional at sales in some capacity. Usually.
But what do you feel those people have seen in you, or they're looking for in you to think, right, he can take us forward? Have you ever understood that? Like, how come somebody invests in you?
Yeah. I think for me it's conviction.
Okay.
So there's definitely, I'm not super smart and I'm not super talented and lots of different things, but I will go the full mile. Yeah. They know that if I'm going to go through this process, that I'm going to go all the way. So they know that if they give me anything here, that he's going to stay along the line and he's not just going to give up. So that conviction is quite powerful. Where, how many people you said, listen, I'm going to go and do this and do that, and it's all talk and it never happens. I'm bored of it. A lot of energy is wasted with this process. So I think part of it is that, okay, are these guys, is this guy the right person? Whether it's an investor or a co-founder or a C-level executive that's coming on, is this the right team? I think my conviction is key. People believe me because I believe me as well. Yeah. And it helps. Yeah. So I think that's probably one of the core things where it's that conviction I have in what I'm about to do.
Yeah. I think, as I mentioned before, like you have this such strong belief that people, they might think you're crazy, but they want to go on that journey with you to see where it gets you.
Well, as I said, you got to be crazy. 9 out of 10 fail in the first year. 9 out of them 10 fail. So knowing that you are facing failure, then you're pretty crazy to go down the journey. So you have to be. If you've got a very normal person doing this, the risk will come in at some point, and they'll bail out of actually trying to execute at this scale. So yeah, you have to be, when I say crazy, different from the norm, because the norm are not building businesses. So you definitely have to be very, very different.
Yeah. Going back to what you said a little bit earlier about changing, how you were before is different to how you are now. What would you say has been the change from the 30-year-old Mike to the just about to turn 40? Where would you say there's been some changes there, good and bad?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not as naive as I used to be. Okay. So, and which is a good and bad thing, right? Because that naivety is that energy that you're fueling on, where you can conquer the world. I've been beaten down in life. I'm a bit jaded and worn from going through all the downs and ups that, business owners go through. So that naivety is gone. I now look at things, with a more open, analytic mindset where these are the negatives, these are the positives, as opposed to we can just do anything, which is where I was before. Yeah. The other thing is I worked very, very hard over the last 10 years. I'm now trying to work very, very smart over the next 10 years. So look, when you're young, you need to be working hard and smart. As you transgress in life, you need to be working more smart than hard. And you would like that mix to be true. So I'm now trying to use my experience, like a footballer sitting, in the midfield, has seen the game before.
As the quarterback.
Doesn't have to run too much, but can make these perfect plays and change the whole game. Yeah. So I'm trying to use my experience now and guide as opposed to operate. I think I'm moving more as well strategic. I was an operator. I'm now focused on high-level strategic moves as opposed to day-to-day operations. This can be with people who are better than this and, and looking forward to the challenge. So my role is shifting, as I'm growing. I think it's the same for most entrepreneurs that are going through the same journey.
Yeah, so let me ask you, because along with people saying that you can exit a business in 2 years and do all these crazy things, people always say, or there are people that say you need balance in your life. But do you think a younger Mike could have been the success, quote unquote, if you would have had balance? Or is it the fact that you went all in, late nights, continuously working? You needed that to be able to build, to elevate now, to maybe pull back a little bit, but focus where you need to.
Yeah, I think it's look, I had no real experience from an entrepreneurial perspective, not a great university, not a great community. I had to learn everything. So the only way, 2030, work as hard as you can.
Doing it.
And I'm down this all in.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to lose. I saw young people buying properties. It's too early for this, right? Forget this, right? All in, you've got nothing to lose. You've got no family, you're not married, all in. What are you going to lose? Nothing, right? Very, very, very little. I mean, I know it's not for everyone, people looking out, there's always extreme circumstances, but 20 to 30, work as hard as you can. 30 to 40, you start learning through your experience, and 40, you're focusing mainly on your experience. But all in and work hard. That's what's got me here. And there's a load of people that's got out there. Anyone's had a 2-year exit, good for you. You're a lottery winner.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for most 99% of everyone else who's built a business and failed or succeeded, this is going to be hard work, and it's going to be a graft. And if you're learning for the first time, you are going to work extremely hard and extremely stupid for that occasion. And that's part of the fun. That's how you learn. Yeah. You only learn how to ride a bike when you fall off, and you don't ever fall off, hopefully, again after a while. So you have to break a few things. So yeah, hard
99.9%. I'd say 99.999. That's literally the people which are not getting there.
Hard work and a lot of risk. Now, obviously, I'm not as risky. I'm more opposed to taking as big a risk as I did, because now I'm thinking, I'm 40, and so I can see the trap happening for everyone else. Even as an entrepreneur, if I was getting slightly older as I am now, would I start another business? It would be it's the question, and I do understand now there is that age element that the earlier you go, the easier it is.
Well, you're not even halfway through your life yet, so you've got your other chapters to come. But what I want to ask now is that you're in this next part of the business. So what do you think it's going to take? And that could be people, it could be a new strategy that's going to take you to get to that next level of where you want to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've realized that there are founders that build 0 to 1, and there's people that build 1 to 100. And I'm curious. So at the moment we've brought in a professional CEO to run the company, who is very structured and very brilliant. Otherwise, we wouldn't have brought him in. Yeah. So we're now focusing on bringing the best people. That's the key. Before, when you got no budgets, it's like I would say to someone, and you've heard me do this, Mark. We'd love to have you in, but we can't pay you. Yeah. And people are like, I don't get it, right? Why would I come? So it's now about us hiring the best people we can get our hands on. There's obviously limits to everything, but we need to find the best people. We want to be associated with the best people and them working with us. So what we're trying to do is break this whole founder circle that there's 3 founders and open this up. And we want really, really, really talented, exceptional people to join our journey. And that was something which I've learned over time. My ego is like, I could do everything myself. That was me 10 years ago during our journey up till now. Now it's like, I need the best talent possible to build what the next journey is. Because for us, the next journey is probably an exit, whether it's $1 billion or an IPO on a large stock exchange. And this is really, really hard to do. And I thought the first bit was hard to do. So this is going to require some really, really good people. So I want to surround myself with some amazing people inside and have that new foundation. And I'm really excited for this because we've never really worked with exceptional people before. So having them around and, ideas and execution and bouncing off. So we're super excited for the next journey. It's like although I'm jaded as the experience I've had, I'm now looking at this with open eyes and thinking there's blue skies above, and this is the next journey, next era, and the next chapter. And it's going to be just as exciting or even more than the previous chapter we just went through.
Nice. Going back to what you said before, I think a lot of people, they think that I'm not going to work for free. I'm not going to give up my time with nothing coming from it. And I think that's the wrong way to look at things, because people spend 20, 30, £100,000, $100,000, whatever, on an education in university. And they walk out there with a bit of paper, but no experience. So why would you not go to work for a company for 4 years to actually get first-hand experience, even if you're not going to be earning the amount of money that you might want? And I think people, they need to look at things a little bit differently, because there's some great companies that they can get in on and maybe have some options with stocks and things like that. And again, that's another story of, are you looking at that, or are you actually looking at what you can learn and develop on? But if you feel that you believe in this company and you want to go on that journey with them, it doesn't always come down to this high salary. It's like, what skills can I actually acquire that's going to help me for the future?
Agree. Listen, it's a hard sell. It's like, even if I bust it out tomorrow, which is a possibility, I will make more money over the next 10 years, even if I lost everything, than I did over the last 10 years, or the 10 years before, because I've got all this experience. So I understand you're in for a long run. This, assuming we want to live beyond 40, which we all do usually, that it's a hard, and it's hard for people to understand this.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest thing. Everyone's like, I want to work for my time. I want to get paid what the market rate is. And most of the time, they're all bananas, because their market rate is zero.
Yeah.
There's not much value. When you bring on new staff, usually there's not much value you can add for the first 3 months. And it's very, very difficult to manage expectations. And, I find it very, if someone came on that was like, hey, I really want to be your apprentice and I want to learn, they'll probably, become the best paid person just naturally in the company. But people want it all. And I don't know if this is a generational thing, which we're seeing coming through. People don't want to work that hard, and they want to get paid everything, and they want all the opportunities. They're trying to get everything. And I understand that's just, we're greedy and we want to consume as much as we can. But if they can get if people can get the right mix, then they could probably achieve much more. And it's hard to have that foresight, and lots of people don't have it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're coming to an end here now. I was going to do a little quick fire, but I think with what you're doing at the moment in the PropTech market, apart from real estate agents sticking around a little bit longer, okay, do you see any real impact that is happening now which you need to get ahead of?
Yeah. Look, we're sat in Dubai. Foreign direct investment, people living in other countries or buying real estate in other countries. This is now, it was a very small market. It's now becoming much more mainstream than ever. So what we're seeing with digitization of workforce and people working remotely, and with the new abilities to live and work anywhere and the world becoming a smaller place, is that there's a new element where foreign investors are now taking up larger market shares of each market everywhere. And this is something that we're really interested in, because this is when you really need agents, when you don't know the market, you don't know where you're at. So we're very much hot on the international segment in all countries, and the mobilization of people and moving around and acquiring real estate in different countries. So we think this is the interesting segment to be in, that kind of relocation or kind of expat market on a global basis, and it's very much a sweet spot. The other part is we feel that the properties being bought sight unseen, not going around, is happening more and more. We're seeing a much larger trend towards this as the technology to view properties becomes easier. And before you had rubbish pictures, now you've got great pictures, now you've got 3D tours, so you can have immersive 3D tours, augmentation, virtual reality. So look, it's happening. The question is when. And I think PropTech has always been one of the very slow adoption of technology segments, that everything moves really slow. But it's just like Uber. One day it was manual, next minute we only use Uber or Grab or an equivalent. So I think we're going to see a lot of change over the next decade moving forward. Yeah, I'll be back in 10 years.
Well, I think just to finish there as well, even if someone else is using other than Uber, they're still going to say Uber. Same as Zoom. People, they might be using Teams or Google Hangout, whatever, but they still is less Zoom.
I think about Airbnb, or Booking, or Sky Scanner. The time of travel agents is gone. There'll be everything changes, and there is something else. That's life, or a replacement of everything. So, and that's what's fun.
Nice.
Otherwise, life will be very boring. So we're looking forward to what the next change is, and hopefully we can be part of this.
Wonderful. Well, look, Mike, knowing you for so many years, what is it, 29 years now? Almost 29 years in total. Sometimes I look to other people which are doing other things, but sometimes I need to look within my friends and be inspired and be proud, which I am. You and a few other little boys, I'm so happy that we're still mates, still good friends, still can call you up, and we're still like nothing's changed. And that's what I love about our friendship, and also with the boys back home as well. So proud of you. I know that this is another chapter, but just the start of where you're going to go with it all. And thank you for being on the show. And Mike, this is your turning point.
Thank
Great.
You. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. As I mentioned before, you could have been anywhere else, but you've been here with me along this journey, and I appreciate that. Now, if you like this, please give it a like and a share and a follow. I'm trying to spread this across the community, and that simple press of a button is going to be able to do that. So let's help the community out here by giving it a like, share, and a follow. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next week.